Alright, everybody. So for a little while now, I've been talking about how I feel like the right-wing grift sphere centered around anti-fanning different types of popular content, especially if it's popular for the worst reasons, like it's expected to fail or being hoped for to fail. How it's just been a really effective grift for a long time, but it's now falling off. People are getting sick of it. I've noticed that more now than ever, I'm seeing more conservative content viewers commenting on my videos that they're right-leaning, but they agree with what I'm saying when I call this stuff out, which is a pretty big deal. And I've noticed now I'm getting more conservative, like Chud Grift channels attacking me. Like, I noticed Chud Logic has started to make videos about me, which granted, he's got like a internal personal hatred for me, which motivates that. I don't know why, but he just like personally hates me for some reason. But like, that still does kind of show that to some degree, there is a recognition from conservative content creators that the left is going to have the potential to sweep up the fall, sweep up what's left, I guess, of the fall that is coming for them. And a really good example of how they're kind of orchestrating their own falling off is the way that they are attacking popular, beloved content creators on the basis that they're not being on board with the grift is woke. Like, it's really bizarre as well, considering these are content creators who are arguably a little right-leaning, and they're attacking them because they view the audience they share not as something that they could benefit from by playing nice, like they used to back when they were smart, I guess, but instead as a way that they can, like, try to drive a wedge in and convince the more conservative content viewers and fans of that content creator that they're the only ones with enough spine to call out what conservatives should have a problem with in gaming, right? Or what they claim conservatives should have a problem with in gaming. So what ended up happening was a YouTuber named Andy Pants Gaming called out the Actman, very big, beloved, mainstream content creator who's not even left-wing. Like, he's like as much of a centrist as I can really identify online, and he sometimes even calls out things being quote-unquote woke in games. So the fact that Andy Pants Gaming, a pretty prominent anti-woke grifter, decided to call out Actman didn't go unnoticed. Not by Actman, that's for sure. And so Actman challenged him to a debate, which they did. And Actman trounced Andy Pants Gaming so bad that Andy Pants Gaming's version and upload of the video has comments turned off, and Actman's version is uploaded with the parentheses comments enabled in the title. I think that alone should tell you how the debate went. That alone gives you an idea of how hard Actman won. And so afterwards, Andy Pants Gaming false copyright struck Actman, engaged in copyright abuse, failed. The video was reinstated because Actman's a big YouTuber who was able to get it fixed. And since then, Andy Pants has made multiple cope videos shit-talking Actman since then. He also called out a bunch of other popular content creators as well, claiming that they were bought out by Activision because when they criticize games made by Activision, they say, "Don't buy this game. It sucks," instead of "Don't buy this game, it's woke," which must mean Activision paid them to say, "Don't buy this game because it sucks," instead of "Don't buy this game because it's woke." With also the implication of if you don't say that games are bad because they're woke and have diversity, then you must be paid to believe it. A lot of these right-wing grifters operate on that basis. They accuse any progressive or fan of a thing that they call woke of being a paid shill, which is really just bizarre when you're on the receiving end of it, and it's like, man, I wish I was getting paid to enjoy the stuff I like. Anyway, apparently they haven't learned, though, because despite this leading to a pretty large shift just in the last couple weeks in the general reception of this right-wing anti-woke stuff in these gaming communities, more right-wing YouTubers are jumping on the bandwagon attacking Actman. This video, I don't know if it did this video end up getting ratioed? This video doesn't seem to be ratioed. This has actually worked to a degree, where smaller content creators in the anti-woke grift space, this guy's got 2.18 thousand subscribers, 2,000 subs, and this video in one day has 40,000 views, claiming exposing the Actman's bullshit act. So this is an anti-woke video calling out Actman. Let's go ahead and check it out. Obviously, the conservative people who hate Actman because he won't call games woke, if just for having minorities in them, are going to flock to this stuff. And I think that's the audience these people are trying to grift off of, which might be very short-term beneficial for them. But when you're attacking big, broadly beloved content creators on grounds that come off as insane, the majority of people are just going to get a really bad taste in their mouth about not just those individual creators calling them out, but the entire community that's now jumping on the bandwagon. I'm telling you guys, if this entire anti-woke, anti-fandom grift falls off, it's going to be all their own doing, and that's what's going to make it all the much more sweet when it does happen. Let's watch this.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm kinda getting tired of Actman's act. I used to be a fan of the guy a few years ago, around when COVID came along. I was home a lot and ended up finding his channel and binging a bunch of his reviews and analysis of games. I liked his lack of hesitation when it came to pointing out negative stuff within the industry, like laziness in game development.
So, okay. The only grounds I can imagine in which this video makes a coherent point is if he points out the fact that the Actman might be one of the most performative personas I've seen on YouTube. What I mean by this is that you can kind of tell that the Actman's cadence and way of speaking when he's on camera is probably not the way he talks in real life. Like, he's definitely... Every YouTuber does this, but I think to different extents, and it feels like, at least, I just get the vibe, even as a content creator myself, that the Actman really, like, puts on a show. And that's part of why he's so successful, right? Like, he is... I wouldn't say he's playing an act so much as he is, like, just doing what every content creator who is successful does, and that they go from talking how they normally do, which might be like, hey, how you doing? Oh, that's cool. You having a good day? I'm glad to hear it. Cool. Instead of talking like that, you might talk a little bit more like how I am right now, where I'm projecting my voice a little bit more, I change my inflection more often, I try to speak in a way that's more pleasant to listen to for long periods of time, instead of a droning, kind of mumbling way. I try to speak in a way that's very clear to hear. Like, you can hear that Actman is doing all of those things to the 10th degree, but I don't think that's him faking who he is as a person. That's just making entertaining content and not being a mumbling, bumbling, like, boring weirdo when you make your videos. This guy is going to mumble this whole video out, I can already tell based on the first few seconds, and this video's got 40,000 views because content creators who grift off of right-wing, like, anti-woke shit can be the most boring, low-effort grifters ever and still rope in tens of thousands of views in a day easily just by monopolizing off of the hatred around anything that has been deemed woke by the culture war.
Predatory monetization and the stupidity of chasing elusive live service dreams. He was just a regular dude, passionate about video games. In many ways I still saw him that way, even after I moved on to other interests and stopped watching his content regularly. But now, recently, he's been popping up again, even to someone who had stopped following him, and not for a good reason. And I find it difficult to figure out if he's still that kind of creator or something else. And that is what I intend on calling out and reflecting on in this video.
Alright,
I believe everyone is entitled to making whatever kind of content they want to make. This is why when Andy Pants made his woke YouTubers video...
What is this music, dude? What the fuck? Dude, do you know how to audio balance? Because I can barely hear you talking over this fucking choir music you're playing. What the hell?
Where he calls out a couple of creators, including the Actman, for not talking about certain topics and things going on in the games industry. I disagreed with him. My video on the matter was simply focused on Andy's dumb arguments that the billionaires, aka the executives, the CEOs and the investors of video game companies who spent the entire last decade trying to take every cent they could from us via predatory monetization that even got governmental attention down on them, were actually on our side and wanted to give us the games that we want, but the supposed LGBT cabal inside of these studios weren't letting them. Regardless...
Okay, this video's off to a good start so far. Apparently he called out Andy Pants Gaming on the fact that he was under the assumption that the CEOs and the billionaires wanted successful, which obviously they want successful, high revenue generating games, and that they were actually pushing for anti-wokeness, the executives, the people at the top, and that it's those powerful, strong-arming, woke LGBT devs that are ruining the games. This all kind of branches into a separate sector of the anti-woke grift that's gotten prominence over the last few years of dev blame or dev hate. I don't really know exactly what to call it, where there's just been this general trend in the gaming community to attribute fault that is almost assuredly, to anybody who knows even anything whatsoever about the gaming industry, the fault of game publishers and executives to devs. They go on Twitter specifically to harass and shit talk the devs as well. They take it directly to those people themselves on social media. Because I don't know, I guess it's a very childlike understanding of how games are made, I suppose. But okay, this video made a good point here.
In it, I defended those YouTubers' rights of choosing not to make videos centered on these divisive matters, as it is each one of us' decision and responsibility on what type of content we want to make, and I could understand someone not wanting.
Well, I think the matter of it is that these content creators aren't bothered by gay people or minorities being in these games. I assume what this guy is, I think this guy might be a little more intelligent than your average anti-woke dude. I think he's going to call out rainbow capitalism. He might even say it by name. He might even know what rainbow capitalism is and call it out specifically by name and have a problem with that specifically, but feels as though the only side calling it out is, or like taking issue with it, is the right. I've wondered about that for a while. How many people well-meaningly have a problem with rainbow capitalism? If you don't know what rainbow capitalism is, it's the way a lot of companies very soullessly and shamelessly appropriate the aesthetics of advocating for marginalized groups while simultaneously be participating in actions and practices that clearly show that they don't really care about any cause or group of people, and they're only doing it to virtue signal and raise their stock prices and perception of goodwill among the market. So yeah, I do think that, like, if you notice that rainbow capitalism is a thing, I think it's fair to be annoyed by it. And I wonder if the fact that the right and these anti-woke grifters exist as effectively the main group of people calling it out, I wonder if that's been one of the main things that's allowed it to grow as much as it has, outside of like the parties involved in pushing it with their videos, flooding the algorithm and being really shameless about promoting it, right? Hence the meme about companies during Pride Month and after Pride Month ends, or my favorite, companies during Pride Month on their American version of their accounts on social media, and companies during Pride Month on their Russian and Middle Eastern accounts on social media. That's a good one. I think Bethesda is a good example, actually. I think like Russia or Bethesda, Riot Games, a bunch of companies like that don't do the Pride thing for their accounts that are in countries where it's illegal because they don't care enough to challenge the status quo in those countries.
To divide their massive fan bases with these topics, especially if their videos are apolitically centered on the content itself. A good example of this is MauLer's content. He's a guy who can fully break down a piece of entertainment down to its bones without touching on any political or ideological matters whatsoever, even if those people.
There really is like I don't know what the brain rot is with people who are genuinely convinced by the MauLer is not a conservative thing, because I've had lefties say this to me. And yet, to this day, every time I see a clip of, like, all of the most, like, notorious right-wing grift posters, there's always MauLer just there, right there, chilling out, hanging out and agreeing with everything those guys say. That's why, but he has, like, an army of dick riders and glazers that will call you insane if you dare to say anything such as, he's conservative. Like, the way they react and he reacts to if you call him conservative is like, I mean, you'd think you'd called him a slur. You'd think you'd call him something way more severe than a slur. Because frankly, I've never seen anyone get as butthurt as he does at being called a slur as he gets when you call him conservative. And there's like an entire like dick guard like around him that's like constantly ready to be like, no, he's actually very apolitical. It's like, okay, I mean, maybe his videos are. I don't really care to watch them. They don't interest me much. But I mean, I'm not talking about his videos and his like YouTube uploaded content. I'm talking about his side persona on those streams, I suppose, because that's what I've seen, and that's what seems quite cringe. He is just one of those guys, as far as I'm aware.
pieces of media he's analyzing may have been negatively influenced by it. He simply strips everything down to its core and points out the creative failures of a bad piece of media, and I completely admire his ability to do so. And it makes perfect sense.
So, here's why I've never really been interested in MauLer's content. The people who praise it always say that he does objective media critique. It's like, objective media critique? What do you mean by that? Because if you're like, say, breaking down the story structure and the events and you're arguing why a story is bad, there's no such thing as an objective review in that way. That's not possible. Definitionally, you can't have an objective review. Unless his reviews are solely on, like, so let's look at this particular edit here. Like, in this scene is edited very badly. Objectively so, because the focus of the scene that we're supposed to pay attention to is given as little, way too little screen time, thus that the majority of viewers that I have seen watch the movie didn't understand what was happening in this particular scene due to its editing failures. That would be a good objective review. Maybe that's what MauLer does. So, like, tell me if that's what he does. If you are like a MauLer fan, I don't watch his content outside of like the clips of him on live streams and on podcasts, like with all the chud YouTubers agreeing with them. So, like, unless he's doing like that kind of breakdown where he's like explaining why the filmmakers made a mistake, like they wanted to do a thing, like they had a clear goal to do a thing and then failed at it on an objective level, not like, oh, I don't think they succeeded at it, but they objectively failed at a thing they were trying to do or communicate to the audience. That would be an objective review, I suppose. You could say that's objective. But man, there's not much you could criticize most media on that is objective, right? Like, a lot of any problem you have with anything is going to be a subjective problem. It feels like what MauLer does, based on what I hear people say about him, what it feels like MauLer does is say things that a lot of people on the internet already believe and agree with, so much so that the majority of people who watch it seem to come away with the belief that he is objective in his reviewing because they all so unanimously agree. Because, you know, there's an audience that he's selecting for with how he brands his stuff.
That he and the other fellows over at EFAP, for example, would stay away from deep diving into ideological matters. As I said, it is each person's right to shape the genre of their channel.
I feel like I'm getting gaslit. Wait, really? Really? The EFAP podcast avoids ideological matters. They don't discuss wokeness or politics. You know, EFAP has literally made a video response to me, I think, calling me out for being woke. I feel like I'm being gaslit about my own life. It's actually insane. What is this, like, gaslighting campaign over MauLer and, like, the people involved in EFAP? Like, they're not conservatives, guys. They're not conservatives.
No one should feel obligated to talk about something that they don't want to engage with or that they are simply not interested in. And this goes double when it comes to videos about very complicated and potentially toxic matters such as DEI injections in entertainment media, activists in high positions.
DEI injections in entertainment media. It is still insane to me that these people have built this entire culture war, like, stint off of the boogeymanifying of the word, the acronym DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, a term that comes from college classes in, like, law and is not taught in schools. It's not taught in schools. It's not being pushed in media. DEI is like a hyper-specific thing that they learned. Oh, it has a 3-letter acronym, because it always has to have a 3-letter acronym. When you realize the pattern, it's like, holy shit, this is obvious. SJW, like, sometimes it's a 2-letter acronym. PC was a 2-letter acronym. DEI, ESG, like, it's always a 3-letter acronym. So, like, search for any of these words they've used in the past. It's always a 3-letter acronym they come up with, or a 1-syllable word that they can use, like woke, right? And so I feel like a lot of these content viewers, they just fell for the right-wing psyop. Or BLM, yep, there you go. Another thing that they blew out of proportion and turned into a boogeyman. Yeah, it's It's so bizarre. This is basically it. Oh, is there a meme that depicts it? I love when you can basically explain this shit with a meme. This is pretty good. White people don't say SJW, Anita Sarkeesian, Tumblr trash anymore. They say woke, sweet baby, DEI, ESG garbage. Yep, they always find a new list of buzzwords to use. They always do.
Such as Sweet Baby Inc. within entertainment media, and
you
even
go.
more complex matters, such
Right
as
away.
intersectional feminism and other ideological influences, subtly changing things in our games and other sources of entertainment, based solely on ulterior motives that are not
What's really funny about this entire genre of content, and the reason why, like, these people making these, like, completely non-arguments will never, like, gaslight me into thinking they're sincere, is that they are arguing under the assumption that their agenda is the okay one to have in games, and they specifically praise when their agenda is promoted in games, and yet the idea that there could be, in any realm of gaming, whether it be like indie walking simulators like back in 2016 or AAA mainstream games, which now is what they demonize as like the thing that's evil and destroying gaming, it's like there's no area in gaming that is allowed to have the left agenda, but they praise endlessly games that represent their agenda because they're ideologues just like anybody else who has an ideology, I suppose, and they like it when their ideology is represented, and they don't like it when another ideology is represented. And they're fighting this culture war because generally, as a whole, society is moving more left, more progressive, more accepting, more tolerant, and that is not what their ideology is in favor of. And so they have to take things even like Helldivers 2, which is literally satiring their political worldview, but in the future, and they have to pretend like it agrees with them, right? And then they praise it when they pretend it agrees with them, because they need anything in this popular media sphere to agree with their politics, but they pretend like it's an attack, like it's the end of the world. They have the right to call out whenever anything reflects left-wing politics in their perception. This is why I don't buy it. It's like you guys praise conservatism reflected in media and admonish and demonize anything perceived as progressivism, even if it's just minorities in a game in media. Clearly, you are not, like, nonpartisan here. You are clearly extremely biased. And no one is, well, at least I'm not buying that you're not. It's not working on me.
focused on the enrichment of the actual piece of fiction that they're producing, and are instead more interested in using the medium as a vehicle to push their ideological and political beliefs.
I've been thinking about picking this game up when I have a little more room on my plate, because I've currently got a bit of a backlog to catch up on, and this game looks pretty dope. Like, every time I watch gameplay of it, it looks like there shouldn't be enough buttons on a controller to make the amount of things you can do in the game possible. Is this Sekiro? What the fuck? No, it's Black Myth Wukong. Black Myth Wukong looks really, really neat. Like, the combat in it and stuff, and like the way that you move and attack and stuff. All I can really, the only way I can put it into words is it looks like a controller shouldn't have enough inputs to make the things you do in the game possible. I don't know how they pull it off. Maybe it's just the animations are really flashy, but it looks to me like there's a lot of button inputs you have to do to execute really precise, crazy combo attacks that just, they look awesome, man. It looks like such a cool game. I definitely can't wait to pick it up.
Beliefs, almost like subtly and sometimes not so subtly, begging our heads with lessons of morality and political correctness, otherwise known as
the message.
These are things that
I like that. These games are trying to beat us over the head with messages of morality. The message. Okay, yeah. The idea that games have stories, and the stories in the games incentivize or glorify being a good person is a bad thing, of course. Media has never done this until recently.
are complicated to even identify in many cases, and sometimes some failures
Hey guys, remember when this video was about Actman being bullshit?
of the piece of media are nothing more and nothing less than good old incompetence, so diving into it can be a minefield and can very quickly turn into heavy political matters. And this is not to go into everything else.
It can turn into political matters? What do you mean? What is apolitical about a discussion of representation of marginalized groups in media? When is that conversation ever not political? These people are so desperate to gaslight as many people as possible into thinking that making a movement out of opposing minorities existing in games and pretending like there's a conspiracy of some kind or some sort of like virus that is infiltrating the landscape to push an agenda. They're pretending like this is the end of the world. Oh my god. This shit is so fucking annoying to deal with because I feel like I'm being gaslit, you know? They want to convince people not only that these things are the end of the world, but that discussing them isn't a political thing. That's what's so wild. If you ask this guy, he would say this is not a political video. And a lot of the people watching it and agreeing with it, I hate to say, would agree. But here's the thing, though. Nonetheless, you go to Actman's videos, and the vast majority of people who are knowledgeable of the situation are dunking on the people attacking him. And not only that, but they're dunking on on the people supporting the YouTubers that are dunking on them. And so while yes, these people are grifting and making a very, nice little stack of cash for themselves in the short term, they're doing a massive disservice to both themselves and the entire culture war side that they're fighting by turning themselves into the insane schizos who attack popular YouTubers because they're not also whining and screaming about minorities in games.
Else that surrounds it, like how influential the gaming journalism and excess media journalism are, and how they have proven to go as far as to lie and misrepresent matters to serve their agendas, such as the situation with Black Myth Wukong, the almost situation with Space Marine 2, and the constant occurrences of masking every bit of criticism.
I do really like the framing of any discussion the left has, or anyone on the left has, as an attack, you know? Black Myth Wukong's shameless lack of diversity is attracting the wrong type of fans. So, for those that don't know, the developers of Black Myth Wukong at one point, they said they don't want any feminist agenda in the game. There are definitely, anti-woke chuds that worked on Black Myth Wukong, which is a big part, and of course, it's not a very diverse game in terms of race, which, shouldn't surprise you, China. It's become one of their big flagships, especially considering it'll probably win Game of the Year. It's one of the biggest W's they could possibly have with their whole praising and saying this is what we're fighting for more of any game that is expected to do really well, and then admonishing of any game they expect to do poorly. Obviously, sometimes they predict badly and they attack a game that ends up doing well and they walk it back and pretend like it never happened. It happens with movies too, like the Mario movie, for example. But yeah, this is just all part of the sinking ship spotting thing, where on the opposite polar end of the spectrum, they put anything that's going to be successful and they could frame in any way or overtly represents their values as the golden castle on the hill, right? And it helps them a lot that this game is really good and will probably win Game of the Year.
Wukong, the almost situation with Space Marine 2, and the constant occurrences of masking every bit of criticism lobbed at any protected piece of media, be it games or shows or movies, as alt-right, bigoted, ist, and phobic attacks from irrelevant, loud minorities online, completely shutting down all discourse around the matter.
What's so funny to me is he's they're just calling us racist because they want to shut down discussion. Meanwhile, these are just random journalists making op-eds and whatnot. They could be paid by Ubisoft, I guess, but Ubisoft doesn't seem to have enough money to go around at this point to do that. No, but these are the same people who claimed they will literally report on rumors from 4chan that Ubisoft made Yasuke one of the main characters in Assassin's Creed Shadows, and I'm not joking, this is a rumor they're reporting right now as fact, though they do say it's a rumor. They're still making videos on it, and people are taking it as fact and acting as though, well, Ubisoft would do that, and that's all that matters. That kind of mindset. They're claiming, I shit you not, that during the BLM protests in 2020, Ubisoft canceled their plans to have a Japanese protagonist instead of Yasuke, or Yasuke, and instead made a black character as the protagonist, Yasuke, and made him, and I quote, this is what the rumor claims, and they are taking and reporting this as fact, the 4chan originated rumor claims they made him look like George Floyd to, and I quote, make money off of the BLM craze. This is what the 4chan post that originates this rumor claims, and there are dozens of right-wing grift channels reporting this as one of the, like, their 4 or 5 daily uploads. That is the level of gaming journalism integrity they have on this side, which is so funny. I guess these aren't the same people that used to claim that they were just fighting for ethics in gaming journalism, but back in the day, the movement that built the space for these people to thrive, this sort of like virus of grifting to thrive, was Gamergate. And the original defense of Gamergaters against claims of being sexist or racist or homophobic or whatever was that they're just fighting for ethics in gaming journalism. Meanwhile, that same community has turned into the people who find a 4chan rumor and report on it as fact.
And pushing forth the narrative that anyone questioning these issues is one of those vile things, and totally ignoring the fact that with each and every single additional thing that they push, more and more people become further and further disinterested in these pieces of media, hence their recent financial flops, and of course, the true reason as to why...
Wait, well, isn't that fine then? Like, if that's actually the case, then why are you guys worried? This is how you know that the entire premise they're arguing from doesn't make sense. Use your fucking brain. If this woke mind virus that's taking over games is causing them to fail constantly and nobody is liking it and it's pushing people away from it, then isn't it a self-fulfilling problem? Like, if you think this wokeness thing is a problem and everyone hates it and it's causing everything that it infects to fail, then doesn't that mean that eventually it's going to kill itself off like a virus that's too lethal for its transmissibility, if that's the way you view it? Like, think about it from their own terms. How does it make sense to fight an entire culture war against this unless it's because, well, a select group of content creators recognize there's a lot of money to be made off of scaring people about this? Even if, as they claim, that this is why it's garbage, the reason why it's garbage is that it's not a threat, it's going to fall off on its own. What I'm pointing out is this constant dichotomy that shows itself in fascists. And yes, I'm calling this guy at least fascist adjacent, which is the idea that the designated enemy is both weak and strong, that they are simultaneously so weak that you should just simply take up arms and become active in fighting them because nothing is stopping you. It's that easy. But also they're so strong that if you don't do something, then society is going to crumble and fall because of your lack of action. They're both contradictory ideas that are pushed by the same group, but they are both reasons to act against the enemy. Whether you think because the enemy is an easy target that you want to attack because you're a predator and that's what the movement wants to appeal to, or that you are someone who sees themselves as a victim and sees the enemy as a threat that needs to be fought against for your own protection. They appeal to two different types of people who are rash and quick to reactionary beliefs.
Why this discourse grows louder and more constant, with seemingly every announcement of a new game or show or movie getting mired in often very toxic arguments online because of both extremes coming to blows. Like I said, deeply complicated and divisive matters that are not there just to be brushed over and require at least a small level of seriousness and maturity to actually dive into. These are things that can
Dude, if someone isn't willing to give explicit examples of what they mean when they say two extremes in a situation, then I really don't take them seriously. Because when I refer to two extremes in a situation, I describe what those extremes are like, right? Like, let's say I'm describing the issue of Israel and Gaza, right? I describe the two extremes of the situation as, on one side, you've got the hardcore Zionists who believe that Palestinians have no right to live on that land, and that the IDF and Israel and Netanyahu are in their justification to do anything whatsoever to that land, to colonize it, take it, settle it, or kill the people on it and displace them. And then on the other radical end of the issue, you've got the super Gaza protesters who are literally in favor of Hamas, make excuses for and even clap and cheer for what was it, October 7th thing. They they make they praise, like, we're talking like the Hassan shit, right? They refuse to vote for like Kamala Harris because they don't think that she is willing. She's not easy enough. She's too easy on Israel in their view, right? Like those people. Bro was about to say Gen 6. Go easy on me. Go easy on me, okay? Bro was about to. You're giving me shit for almost saying the wrong thing. That is crazy. That is crazy, dude. Anyway, like I was saying, though, it's like I can identify two extremes in a situation if I'm talking about there being a situation where there's two extremes and the extremes are both wrong. And I think it's important to identify the beliefs of both those extremes. When people don't do that and they just sort of gesture at the idea of there being two extreme sides, to me it feels like they're doing this bullshit. Ironically, based on what this video is called, it feels like they're playing an act of like trying to come off as centrist, as like like they want people to think they're a hyper reasonable center-leaning person who just forms their opinions based on what information they have in front of them. You know, they're trying to come off as like a logic lord, when in reality they're just waffling. They're just yapping. They didn't actually say anything. They just implied there are two radical sides of a situation. There usually are, but if you can't identify them, then I don't think your opinion matters. If you don't identify them, I should say. Not if you can't, if you don't.
Absolutely poison a channel, especially if it's a channel that built its fanbase on completely different content. This is something that even I am afraid of. I started making my content because of being sick of it all and wanting to be another voice against it, but one that aspires to use common sense and call out whatever bullshit I find wrong, no matter what side it is coming from, hence the videos on Andypants. But this is...
It's so fun watching as like chud right-wing grift YouTubers wanting to enter this space realize that they're fighting over a now shrinking audience, and now they're attacking each other. They're attacking larger mainstream YouTubers and each other to try to like poach off of each other's audiences and convince each other's audiences they're the real non-shill who's willing to call out the woke agenda. And they're going to destroy each other fighting over each other's audiences. It's very pleasant to watch.
Still not the type of road that I want to go down perpetually. I wish to eventually carry on making videos about games, as it is what I am mostly passionate about. Videos about praising the things that I love and roasting the things that I don't. Talking about the industry, doing retrospectives, commenting on things that I find problematic and on things that I find exciting, calling out predatory monetization.
Oh, woke, you said problematic. Alright, let's see what the duality is. He bored me.
The situations that I just got done mentioning. But from what I keep seeing, this is not the case at all. The Actman is perfectly happy to lean into these matters and talk about them. He's just not happy to actually do it in good faith, with good intentions, or with any interest in the matter whatsoever. And what is particularly annoying with the way that he conducts himself in these matters is this duality that he seems to have. On one hand, he presents himself as just this dude, neutral, chill, willing to participate in moderate conversation, have a debate, lay things down, reflect on them, and maybe even attempt to find a common ground. But on the other hand, he's on the far opposite side of that. He claims he's sick of this supposed pussy-ass political ideologues masquerading as gaming content creators who serve only to invade our gaming space and shove political agenda.
Wait. He's literally referring to people like Andypants, who this guy, who we're covering, made a video on. You're showing tweets where he talks about being like middle of the road on things from months ago, while showing tweets from like a few days ago that specifically are in reference to a guy that he is in drama with, because he's had his eyes open to the fact that the people attacking him are grifters that are just upset. They're not actually upset at him for not calling things woke. They want to poach his audience, and he recognizes what's happening. Especially in that Andypants debate, the way that Andypants could not even attempt to act in good faith and make a real argument. He just like kept trying and failing to do gotchas on Actman to try and convince Actman's audience to sub to him instead. Like, it was just very blatant what he was doing. Actman could tell what he was doing. He called it out multiple times. He knows that these people are grifters now. He's had that firsthand experience, and he's calling it out in these tweets. So what this guy is mad about, and what this guy is upset about here and calling Actman out for as the basis of him being a hypocrite on his centrism, is that he has now had his eyes, as of 3 days ago, he's had his eyes open to this grifter thing after getting attacked by these people, and supposedly he's a hypocrite because what he tweeted here contradicts something he tweeted months and months ago, months before the events that spurred on these tweets. Because apparently, if you don't act as though time is non-existent and exist as a completely stable, non-changing, non-developing person online with opinions that sometimes develop or like mature, then you must be hypocritical. Mind you, we've all watched how Actman developed this mindset that led him to posting this tweet, and it's completely reasonable. There's no like flip-flopping or grifting or like mind changing out of nowhere that happened here. This is like a very reasonable thing to say after what he went through. And this guy's mad about it because, once again, another big YouTuber is starting to realize that there is a community of right-wing grifters that are predating off of the gaming community for their own bottom dollar. And it's going to start getting called out by much bigger figures than it has been on the left for years. And these people, I think, are genuinely scared.
This down the throats of any unfortunate enough to consume their dog shit content. He even calls them parasites, just like I do. At face.
Yeah, so there's no threat, realistically, at the end of the day, in the grand scheme of things, that the Quartering or this guy or most of these right-wing grifter channels have to me making a video on them, right? Like, they're still going to grow with their own audiences and their own sphere. Like, the people who watch my videos or who would even be appealed to by my videos would never have fallen for these things generally, right? Some people get out of the right-wing rabbit hole for my stuff. I've gotten more messages about it now than before, like more recently than usual. But it's still not the majority of my viewers. Most of my viewers were already progressive-leaning or like somewhat apolitical when they got into my content. But Actman, on the other hand, has an audience of people who are, a lot of them are apolitical, but a lot of them are a little right-leaning. Like a little bit, like a lot of them are predisposed to getting into this content. And they saw Actman's audience as a potential wellspring of new fans, but also now, since Actman is calling this stuff out as a massive threat, because Actman is going to potentially inoculate a massive, multi-million subscriber audience of people who are perfect targets for right-wing radicalization and grift content. He's going to inoculate them against their clickbait and their bullshit and their scamming grift. And that's terrifying to these people because that's a lot of missed out on money. And I think that's why so many of them are now calling him out and see him as a threat. They want to quickly poach as many fans, right-wing fans, as they can off of him. And they also want to hopefully try and take him down before he takes them down, you know? I gotta say, I am very much enjoying watching as this community tears itself apart. Let's read some of the comments and see what the response to this is. Actman is just the embodiment of don't ask questions, just consume product and get excited for next product. He cannot hold down a decent, mature conversation and will probably fold under an actual serious debate. And to think I used to like the guy. Well, Andy Pants Gaming debated him and fucking lost hard, so you can keep on saying, oh, he'll lose in a debate, but until one of you people can actually make it happen, you're just kind of fantasy posting. I love when conservatives do that, when they post fantasies about how someone who has won a lot of debates would totally lose a debate against their, like, right-wing favorite. It's even funnier when that particular right-wing favorite has been trounced by that individual multiple times already. And they're like, debate number 5, my right-wing fave is going to trounce that lefty figure. Consume product is a Nazi dog whistle? Yes, it is, yeah. Hold on. Consume. Yeah, so here's like some of the things that come up. This is Ryan Kinnell, I think? Is that who this is? No, I think it's someone else. This is one of the Chud Grifter channels. You can just tell from the fact that he's surrounded by toys. Don't ask questions, just consume product, and then get excited for next product. I love this one from It's a Gundam. Fallout show. Don't ask questions, just consume product. Who remembers when they took the biggest L ever on the Fallout show, calling it woke? They really couldn't, like, not, considering there was a female lead and a black lead. So how are they going to say it's not woke? but they attacked it before it even came out. I remember there were there was almost, you guys may find this crazy because of how beloved the Fallout show is, but the Fallout show almost got Rings of Power. It almost got Rings of Power, where like the narrative that it was bad would almost started hard enough that even though it's a great show on release, the internet wouldn't let that be true online, if that makes sense. Like the Fallout, to give you an idea of like the insane attacks against this show before it released, not even from the right, but just the internet trying to hate the show before it even came out. Who remembers when the clip of Lucy negotiating with the ghoul dropped on Twitter, and the comments were nonstop hate? People were saying, oh, they filmed the scene in a certain way with the characters standing in certain positions, specifically so they could clip it for vertical format to use on to make TikTok and shorts advertisements. They filmed it in this way just to advertise it. There were so many insane conspiracy theories that people were making up and that were getting like traction. But then the Fallout show dropped, people gave it a chance, and they just weren't fast enough in establishing the, all right, guys, we've all agreed to hate this no matter what, kind of bandwagon before it came out that they did with Rings of Power. Well, all that said, I feel like I did a pretty satisfactory job for my evaluation of talking about this topic, so I think here's a good place to wrap it up. If you enjoyed this segment, please consider leaving a like. Whether you found it educational, entertaining, or just enjoyable in any way, consider dropping a thumbs up. It really does go a long way to boost the channel and the algorithm, forcing Google to push my content to new viewers. And of course, you can also comment down below to kind of magnify that effect as well. And you can subscribe and ring the bell icon and turn on all notifications on YouTube so they actually tell you when I go live or upload. And of course, don't forget to follow my social medias, which are linked down below in the description if you want to see more stuff from me. And hey, consider joining my fan Discord, link down below in the description. It's totally free to join, it's the main hub of my community and fan base, and I host game events, call-in streams, watch parties, and I announce all my new uploads and streams there. So if you don't want to miss anything and you want to be a part of the, the community at large, then consider hopping in. And of course, finally, if you've got the money for it and you feel like it, consider donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or supporting me financially through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, StreamElements, Patreon, or buying merch to the Streamlabs link down below if you want to help me keep the lights on and a roof above my head here at the Xander Hall studio. It really means a lot. But regardless of how you support me, even if you're just a lurker, I really appreciate it. And as always, I hope to see you again, and have a good one.